We've seen a significant decrease in the number of recorded infections. I know yesterday was 4,300 and today it's 3,200. Are we likely to see a change in this trend with people returning to work and lifted curfew still in place?
Good evening. So, yes, if more people go for testing, we could see an increase, but I don't think the increase in number of cases should be too much of concern. I think the positive news in South Africa right now is, except for KZN, in the rest of the provinces, the number of people that are being hospitalized is actually on a downward trajectory. And similarly so, the number of people that are dying of COVID-19 is actually on a downward trajectory. So even though if more people do come forward for testing when they return from holiday, they might show an increase in number of cases, most important in South Africa is whether that is translating into hospitalization and death, which would be very, very unlikely.
All right. But then to what extent did the holiday season somewhat contribute to the decline in figures, purely because many wouldn't feel obligated to test since they weren't going to work, and many have reported, in fact, mild symptoms?
So that's correct. So the number of tests that have been performed has been on a decrease over the past 2 weeks or so during the holiday period. But again, to emphasize, our focus really needs to be on hospitalization and death. Counting the number of cases is somewhat academic exercise right now. If anything, if you are wanting to guesstimate the number of people that have possibly been infected with Omicron in South Africa, it's probably going to be in a region of close on to 30 to 40% of the population that have been infected. But again, the most important is that there's been a complete uncoupling of the cases and the hospitalization rate.
Just let's delve deeper into those hospitalization rates. If we look at the numbers now in comparison to numbers this time around or during this period last year, what are we looking at?
Two very, very different scenarios. This time last year, we were looking at least two to three times greater number of hospitalizations taking place. And the number of people that were dying of COVID-19, including as an example during the course of the Delta wave, which was our third wave, was about 10 times greater than the number of people that have been dying of COVID-19 during the course of this particular wave. So again, complete uncoupling, and the reason for this is extensive immunity that has evolved in South Africa, both because of vaccines as well as past infection over the course of the first three waves, which is protecting people against severe disease, although not working too well in protecting against infection, which isn't too surprising for Omicron variant that is antibody evasive.
I just want to take you back to the coastal towns, particularly KZN, which you spoke of, which is somewhat of a concern. Are we not looking, though, in as much as you really don't want us to focus too much on the increase in infections, but is it not concerning, or could we not see a situation where, as people now move back to the city from the coastal towns, that the numbers nevertheless would increase?
So it might happen, but at the same time, I think what we've experienced in South Africa is that with Omicron, this wave has been much more sharp in an increase of number of cases and much more sharp in a decrease. And again, to emphasize, I do believe that a high percentage of the population have been infected with Omicron, much greater than the number of cases that have been recorded. So there's immunity that's also evolving against Omicron, which will protect against infection due to Omicron because of people having been infected. And that is across all of the provinces in all likelihood.
No, that's certainly great to hear. Professor, thank you very much for your time. That was Professor Shabir Madhi, Director of the Vaccines and Infectious Disease Research Unit at Wits University.